The issue, of course, is that complex nexus of politics, diplomacy, and the economy, not to mention regional and global security, that overlays all of these issues collectively and individually. So first, UN General Assembly's in session. The most vocal Iranian President Ahmadinejad is in town. There's the immediate challenge, of course, that an Iran with nuclear ambitions poses for the region and the world, especially how Iran's disputed elections skew or play into the political picture in general in the region. And second, there's the related question of the relationship between a broad agenda for peace in the Middle East and the immediate stalemate in the Palestinian peace process, which seems unlikely to be broken anytime soon, I would guess, from the events of this past week as well. And that's all, of course, accompanied by the animosity generated by the continuing Israeli-Palestinian confrontation.
One can safely assert that the luster of the Islamic Revolution in Iran has vanished. In its place, there is now a window of opportunity for the kind of change we all seek, and it is my hope that this opportunity should not be wasted.
So how do you get rid of the salinity? The Jordanians are considering nuclear desalinization. So the nuclear issue that was discussed earlier, it doesn't just apply to Iran. And nuclear power can be used for peaceful purposes to solve the problems of countries like Jordan. And the Jordanians are serious about this, and the United States is signed to deal with them to help move this along. Also, the UAE, Morocco, Egypt, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and many other countries in the region are seriously considering nuclear power for desalinization and electricity.
That changed with a major with the election first of President Obama, but then I think the impact of the Cairo speech in which Obama addressed the Muslim world and called for a new beginning was something that had enormous repercussions.
And I think that, of note, in order to be able to report in a region, you have to have access. You have to be able to get from one side to another. You have to obviously have good sourcing. But most important here, could you imagine that you're living a few miles away and Israeli never stopped in to visit his colleague only a few miles away? So here we got Israelis on a bus and said to them from Haaretz and Yediot, you're going to go visit your newspapers like Al-Quds, which of course is in East Jerusalem, mind you, but you're going to go also to Ramallah and go visit with Al-Hayat al-Jadida. And I think it's important because this is what helps shape everything that public policy is all about.
I suppose Egypt has tried in its own way to adopt a Chinese model of development, which is, you can have political reform, you can have economic reform, but you can't have neither. So if you're not willing to go down the political reform path, it really behooves you as a society to go down the economic reform path. And Egypt tried to do some of that to some effect, particularly when money was flowing easily and oil money was flowing more easily and credit was more easy to obtain. There was some signs of that in Egypt, although again with absolutely zero political reform.
But there is in fact a broad consensus across the political spectrum in Iran that some sort of an independent nuclear fuel cycle short of a bomb is something that would be in Iran's broader national and even international interest.
We wish to remind everyone here that after all, the very same countries who are today pushing for further sanctions on my country over the nuclear issue were the very same country who were competing in selling us the technology before the revolution. What has changed here? Is it an element of trust? Is it an element of transparency? Is it a country that stands up to its commitment when it signs a treaty, like the NPT, for instance? What is it that has changed? That should be the fundamental question. I've always said on this issue, number one, that it's not a question of technology, but the finger on the trigger. First of all, I don't think I have any more information than all of us stepping into this room getting the latest news, but to the extent of my knowledge, and far from being a nuclear expert, but there are two things going on here. One was a slightly earlier revelation of a high explosive detonation center, which clearly points to an objective of militarization or weaponization. You wouldn't do that if you're searching for just peaceful use of that technology. That's another red flag. And the most recent one being the new site underground facility near Qom, which apparently there are 3,000 centrifuges, perhaps not enough for nuclear reactor, but sufficient to at least manufacture enough fissile material for manufacturing of a bomb. I dread the thought of my country in a state where we have, unfortunately, the majority of countries who may end up building their own weapons program as a result of this proliferation. One day having so many countries in the region pointing missiles at each other. I mean, that would be sheer madness.